you excited to be here? Louder. Good. I am excited to be here too. I'm very excited. When I first heard about TKS, I thought, wow, I wish we had that kind of resources in our hands when I was growing up. I'm kind of jealous right now. No, I'm kidding. I'm not jealous. I'm actually very proud and happy to see so many young individuals here that have so much passion for technology and thirst for knowledge. So I'm glad to be and honored to be speaking in front of you today. Do you guys recognize this graph? Some of you might recognize this graph, yeah? So this is Moore's Law. It got its name from Gordon Moore, who's the co-founder of Intel. And basically, it's the projection that the transistors in a dense integrated circuit is doubling every more or less couple years. So can you grasp this? Can you grasp the computational power that we have in our hands right now? Look at this. And that kind of reflects directly on the technology growth itself. So just for the purposes of comparing and contrasting, when I was 11 years old, desktops had just become a thing, and they were affordable, and we bought our first one for the house, like desktops. I mean, desktops, not laptops, not yet. And I remember the internet back then in Europe, we called it PSTN. It standard for Public Switch something network. I'm terrible with acronyms. And it sounded like this. Keeps going. Keeps going. Keeps going. Okay, enough. So this is how it sounded, and it succeeded to connect you to the internet about 60% of the times on first try. And it needed to occupy your telephone, so that meant you had to have a landline, yes. And if you had heard the sound enough times, you knew when it had connected or if it was going to fail, and all that while you were in the kitchen making something to drink, because that's how long it took. In 2005, when I was in grade 12, laptops became a thing, and this was cutting-edge technology. It was an IBM ThinkPad, a T42P with a whole 1 gigabyte of RAM and a 50 gigabyte of hard drive, cutting edge. And I still have it. This is a recent picture. And today, IBM ThinkPads don't exist. They're Lenovo's, and anything below 16 gigabytes of RAM and 500 gigabytes of hard drive sounds like a joke, and a bad one. So I hope this gave you a little bit of an idea of how things have changed and how little resources we had. And now, looking at you guys, some of you already are building your own apps to do like computer vision and image recognition, and I don't know what else. And me, I chose to do electrical and computer engineering because I loved math, and yet I needed something more applicable that would ensure me to have a living after I graduate. So this is kind of like my little series of fortunate events. When I first got introduced to AI and machine learning and computer vision and robotics and signals and systems and automation and microprocessors and compilers and all that cool stuff was around my third year of university in Athens, Greece. And basically, I just fell in love with it. And in case you're surprised, yes, AI is not a new term. It was existent back then, and that's more than a decade ago. It actually was born around the 1950s. Pretty old, right? Why it became such a big buzzword right now, 60 years after? Well, it partially goes back to Moore's Law. We have the computational power to throw up more complex AI problems, and that would actually be useful to resolve bigger and more interesting problems and more applicable problems. Excuse me. And other reasons are now with the emerging of social media, with the bigger players in the space like Google and Facebook and Twitter, et cetera, we finally have the plethora of data to make models, artificial intelligence models, be meaningful. Another reason is, well, what was my third reason? um, okay, anyway, it'll come to me. So, birth of AI. AI is very much connected to philosophy, believe it or not. It has its ties to classical philosophy. And this is where my personal fascination started from. What I mean by that, okay. So let's go to some AI basics. First order logic. Does anybody know a little bit about that? No? No? Okay. So this is some basic AI theory. So a knowledge base is what you see on the first sentence. That is your knowledge base in this very simple example. Knowledge base is an assortment, a collection of sentences and facts that exist and are valid in one world. So here what this says is that the block A is on top of B is on top of C, and A is green and C is not green, and these are the things that you know are valid in this world. Let's assume a closed world, a closed world for simplicity. Closed world means that everything you know that is true, and everything that you don't know is assumed false. Now, in order to prove any other sentence as valid in this world, that needs to be derived from all the functions, symbols, sentences that are known to be true in that world. So for instance, is this valid? Is there an x and a y where y is green and x is on y? So I'm not going to go into more details, but I've put here a small little reasoning about why this is actually valid in all cases. So this simple little thing, when I was reading about it at university, kind of switched on light bulbs in my head. I was like, what if you could actually simplify some of the actions, reactions of the human brain into a first-order logic model? Just oversimplify, and then kind of extrapolate from that. Second bit of basic AI theory, some basic AI algorithms that are used out there for finding paths, dynamic programming, A-star, iterative deepening, or even gaming algorithms like min-max, alpha, beta, or heuristic pruning. They're all pretty famous algorithms. This little GIF over there kind of shows you how A-star progresses. This also turned on light bulbs in my head. I was like, wow, okay, what if we could model our life decisions in a way where we could we could invent such an algorithm to optimize our life choices. Okay, so level setting, in all honesty, gaming does have, like the games that we have algorithms for have a finite set of available and allowed moves. So an algorithm, let's say, is more attainable, where in our lives we are presented every day with millions of choices and different decisions that we can make. So an algorithm for that would probably be, say, the least inefficient. But coming to think about it, intrinsically, we do, coming to think about it, like in your life, in our game of life, we do use some sort of greedy algorithm with some kind of pruning. What I mean by that is, well, greedy in terms of you are presented with some life choices every day with some different decisions, and without knowing the outcome of those decisions or the other options that you could potentially be presented with, you make the decision that seems optimal given the data that you have in your hands, and that automatically prunes all the other millions of paths that your life could go down. That's pretty fantastic, right? So even that simple thought, there must be a way to formalize this, right? Anyway. After some basic AI and this girl's fascinations, let's move on to the current state of affairs in AI and machine learning. One of the basic things that is used right now is neural networks, and they are literally inspired by the human brain. The basic computational unit of a neural network and the human brain is called a neuron. Neurons have dendrituses, and dendrituses accept input signals and produce output signals that traverse through the single axon of the neuron to other dendrituses of other neurons that are connected to the axon via synapses. The synapses create weights that are adaptable in order for the brain to learn to do useful things like talk or understand language or move hands and feet. So the neural nets were exactly inspired by that exact thing. Synaptic weights can be learnable and trainable and represent how much weight your input has in the overall computation. The weights and the inputs, they're all summed up at the end. We say that a neuron fires if that sum is over a certain threshold. The firing rate of the neuron is represented by an activation function. Common activation functions right now, sigmoid, tanh, what else? ReLU. So all really interesting math. I'm not going to get into details, but really, really interesting math. If anybody is interested in math, you better look at that. So you see like an actual brain here, and then the representation of a neural network. And then if you want to see the architecture of the neural network, this is kind of how it looks like. The hidden layers, it doesn't only have to be one. It can be multiple. It can be as many as you want, although it has been proven that after adding hidden layers, more than 2 or 3, I think, you don't get that more significantly better results. So the computational overhead you add on it is not really worth it. Another really interesting type of neural networks that is very, very applicable and popular in the field of computer vision is convolutional neural networks. Has anybody heard of those? Yes, okay, a few people. And basically what convolutional networks is, if you were to envision what they are, is traditional neural networks in 3D. So convolutional neural networks kind of look like this, and what is different than traditional neural networks is that they embed the knowledge that the input of a neural network is an image with 3 dimensions. This is why they're so much useful in computer vision, because usually that deals with images. And the neurons of a CNN are organized in 3D, so width, space, width, height, depth. This is a little cool thing that is out there. It's open source, and you can go try it out. It's a little Tensorflow Playground. I'd encourage you guys to go try it out. If you want to play with neural networks, kind of understand how they work and how they classify things, look it up. TensorFlow Playground. It's so much fun. You can try different learning rates and different activation functions, kind of see how they classify things. One last thing that I wanted to touch upon in current research about AI and machine learning is the research held by this person, who's like the coolest person ever. His name is Geoff Hinton. He's a professor at U of T and an engineering mastermind in Google. And he's just the most amazing human being ever. I mean it. Like, he's really approachable, and if you ever have a chance to talk to him, go ahead. And he's really, really interesting. He just gives this positive aura. Every time I talk to him, I feel like the world is going to be a better place. But yeah, I'm such a fan. Okay, anyway, back on track. The research that Geoff and his team have released relatively recently is capsules, or CapsNets. So what capsules so let me backtrack. The one big caveat of the convolutional neural networks is that they only take into account to do computations and recognition the presence of a component in an image. So other stuff like rotation, translation, or other orientational characteristics of the image do not play a part, and they're deemed unimportant. And this is what exactly, this last type of things, it's exactly what CapsNets do great. So these 4 images, this is my coffee mug at work. These 4 images, your human brain can understand and perceive them as the same object, and CapsNets will agree with you, but traditional convolutional neural networks will beg to differ. All right, if you're thinking, okay, you bored us with the theory of AI and machine learning, let's see what's out there in terms of practical applications. Let's jump on that. Some of the applications that Google has released and is interested in right now is, well, first off, have you all heard of AlphaGo? AlphaGo? Yes. Okay. AlphaGo is the software created by Google that has defeated 4-1, one of the biggest professional players of the game Go, 4-1 back in 2016. Go was considered a hard problem at the time. AlphaGo was deemed ahead of its time, and because it uses machine learning algorithms and Monte Carlo tree search, and the overall algorithm created was more general purpose than other predecessor AI, it opened up roads and discussions about potentially creating machines with more general intelligence in our lives. And that's pretty fantastic. Okay, although for someone like me, that I have watched the movie Ex Machina, this is kind of fascinating and scary at the same time. Good movie, by the way. You should watch it. It's a good movie. Anyway, moving on. Another application of Google that incorporates machine learning, and you all know it. Hey Google, whether that's in your Home Assistant or on your Android phone, how many of you guys use the assistant, any kind of assistant, Siri, you name it? Oh boy. Okay, so I guess even your generation or maybe your kids' generation, I predict that as the assistant technology perfects itself, you will intrinsically, or you or your kids will perceive talking to your device for help and information as intrinsically as my generation still doesn't think about it twice and pops up a browser and types. Because I'll be honest with you, I don't use the assistant. I'm too old. All right, and that's pretty fascinating. Another big application of Google that you use every single day and you don't think about it ever. RankBrain, guys. Do you know what RankBrain is? Yes, I see some timid hands. Okay, so RankBrain is the algorithm that, when you query on Google search, pops up relevant results to you. And also does that little cool thing where if you do a typo, it says, oh, did you by any chance mean this? And you're like, haha, smart. So that. It also helps with ranking ads, and before you rush condemning, oh, ads are annoying, well, they are still the biggest source of revenue for Google, so that we can continue imagining the future and creating amazing technology for amazing human beings. But other Google products also incorporate ML. So, for instance, Google Photos. Have you noticed that when you snap a picture with your phone on Google Photos, it kind of and it's of a friend of yours that you've already shared pictures with, it kind of tells you like, oh, do you want to share this with person X, Y, Z? And you're like, how did you know that? Yep, that's ML right there. And a personal, really fascinating application that is like close to my heart, I really love it, is called Deep Dream. It's open source and you can go sign up and try it. It's also created by Google. This is my bookcase, the real photograph, and then the one that I passed through Deep Dream. And basically what it is like it creates like an inception of the image. It passes on neural networks and other image filtering, and you can create like an image that looks like it's in a dream within a dream within a dream. Pretty cool. Other applications out there. It's not only Google that's interested in AI. IBM with the Watson brand and the Watson Assistant and speech to text and text to speech and sentiment analysis and all of the other Watson services. Self-driving technology powered by Google, Uber, you name it. This is Pepper. I love that little thing. I've seen it in person. It's really cute. And even your Facebook is a big ML entity itself. From the posts that pop up on your newsfeed to the ads that creep in between, all geared towards your interests and what you're most likely to click, read, view. All right. No? Backtrack? Okay. So, what the future holds here is like spectacular. You have so much opportunity, so many resources on your hands. Universities have so much research going on AI and ML. Big companies like Google, Facebook, Twitter, everybody's investing heavily. There's other companies as well, like the nonprofit OpenAI that I admire fully, and their mission statement kind of sums up in, we create technology for general purpose AI for the greater good of humanity. How cool is that? And like, you can do the simplest thing. Get out of here and go download some open source library and start coding right away and just play with all these things. You have so much opportunity. I'm so jealous. I am jealous, okay. I admit it. So go explore. But if I were to predict something for the future of all this, okay, I'm not a psychic, and coming to think about it, like the computer engineers in the 1970s that used to travel the world with magnetic tapes and plugging them into computers to run the updated software, could they ever imagine the profession of a software engineer in the form that it has today? I doubt. But anyway, if I were to make like a prediction or an educated guess, I would expect to see AI and ML reeking more into different sectors, like kind of have like cross-sector, cross-field things happening. So what I mean by that is, even though there's a lot of applications out there that already touch medicine and healthcare, for instance, for other fields like structural engineering, environmental engineering, it's still a lot of like uncharted territory. Why is that? Well, AI and ML, they're still, even though we have a lot of like open source libraries that make it easy to apply and play with, it's still kind of considered the privilege of the computer engineer. Why? Because, well, we know the math, we know the kind of like the magic behind it, and we know how to code stuff. So if I were to envision something, is envision versatile individuals that will see the bigger picture, connect the dots, and be led to solutions to bigger and greater problems for humanity. What I'm specifically more interested in to see, though, is really applications in medicine. So just for level setting, the lifespan of the human being used to be, in the 1800s, it used to be between 30 and 40 years old. And it has more than doubled over the past 200 years, and that's fantastic. I'm not a fan of like I'm a fan of being here for, not being here for a long time, but for a good time, and that involves staying healthy. If you could do both, fantastic. That also has to do with staying healthy. So I think the biggest applications in the room that we have to create like prevention and treatment and all these things for, I don't know, everything from autoimmune disorders to cancer is in the palm of our hands, and AI and ML can help with that. The goal is obvious. Nobody suffers. Okay, just to conclude, because I think I'm running out of time. Okay, just to wrap it up quickly. Just if the way technology progresses, things change so fast. If you don't want to become obsolete, keep this thirst for knowledge. Keep constantly learning, or be able to demonstrate the desire and ability to do so. Even though I don't expect that the need to make a living will eliminate anytime soon, I do envision a society where there will be that will foster a sub-community of people that will learn for the sake of learning and for progressing humanity. And really, that lies up to you to create. every generation moving forward will have more power to create the world they want to live in more than ever before. The world is going to be grand. The future is predicted to be grand. Thank you.